Dear viewers, welcome to Radio Metro Mail. You are watching Catch Up. In Catch Up, we invite people, those who are interested in politics. Today, we have a very special guest with us. She is an MPP, member of Provincial Parliament. And we had a privilege to have her during her election campaign in May 2018, right? So I remember that time we had long discussion. We talked about many things. So we'll try to touch upon those things as well. So she is again with us on Radio Metro Mail, and she won the election. And rest of the thing we all know, this is history. And probably she is the only Bangladeshi origin woman who has won the election in North America and become a member of Parliamentary Assembly. And Doly Begum, welcome to Radio Metro Mail once again.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'd like to start with you about the campaign, during campaign. So you won the election, we know that, and we know that you have made the history. So how did you make that?
I would say that it was the community that really owned the election. We had some incredible people in my campaign. You remember when we met in May, you know, the campaign was filled with really energized, incredible, skilled people who really cared for the community. I had a lot of support from community leaders, whether it was, you know, the Bangladeshi community, but also people from all over the world, you know, who make up what Scarborough is. People from Brampton, Mississauga, came to help our campaign. So it was really all those individuals who believed in us, who believed that there was some, you know, we could do something different, we could make change, and they really owned the election, and that's what made us successful.
So did you have any specific strategy which was different than from others? Like,
I think the strategy was don't go after winning, go after creating a movement that makes a difference.
That's great. Yes. And you are quite new in politics as well, because I remember last time you said that this is first time you are running an election, and even before that you were not that much engaged in political process. So being a newcomer in politics, so now you have won the election and you are sitting in the, you know, legislative body, assembly. So has your perception of politics changed?
Well,
or it's the same?
I think it's still the same. You know, I am new to politics, but the idea of policies, policy making, you know, working with the government, that's something I've been doing for many, many years. I used to work, you know, opposition to the government, lobbying the government, or making sure that we advocate for issues that affect the community. That I've been doing for many, many years. I've worked for the community for many, many years. So I continue to do that. So I don't see it as, you know, now that I'm sitting in the legislature, my role has changed. I think now it's just, now I have a little bit more opportunity, a little bit more of a chance to do a little, you know, do the work that I couldn't have done as a community member, because now I'm able to push the government inside the legislature.
So you're representing your riding, your people of your riding.
Absolutely.
So it is almost five months, right? You are in the assembly. Yeah. So what is your experience like? Because this is a new experience for you. So
well, it's definitely not a 9-to-5 job. You know, it's a different experience from the other jobs that I had, but it's been really humbling. You know, I walk in every single day, and I'm so grateful to be there. I feel so honored to be there, to represent the people of my riding, to be there as the first Bangladeshi woman to be elected. I thank God every single day, and my family, and people like yourselves and other people who have come to support the campaign, because without them I wouldn't have been there, and I hope that I live up to that expectation as well.
So in our last conversation, I remember that in May, that you, during your campaign, you mentioned about that one of your priority in your, you know, the party platform as well, the child poverty, right? So where do you stand on this right now?
Well, I want to let the audience know that I was, lucky enough to have the critic portfolio for childcare and early learning.
Oh, that's great.
So it fits really well with, you know, what I wanted to do in my writing, but I get to do it for the province as well. And just recently I proposed my childcare, my private members bill, which was for non-profit childcare to provide quality childcare space in the province. And the struggle we're facing in Scarborough, especially in our riding, that still continues. There's a lot more work to be done. We have over, around 33% of our kids that are under 18, our youth, are living in poverty. And some areas within the riding near Brimley, Teesdale, for example, it's about 70%, which is so high. It's it's absolutely unacceptable that we still have that. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that things like private members bill, which will provide families with the opportunity to have their kids in an affordable place for childcare so they can go back to work, but also working with organizations like local organizations that provide the services. I met with BBNC today, the Birchmount Bluffs Neighborhood Center, and what they do is help a lot of families locally to help to have food. Good Food Box, for example. These kind of initiatives really provide that extra support they need. But it's a long-term goal, and we have a lot more work to do, and it's just starting. But I hope.
So how you are planning to engage the parents and the community members in the whole political? You said that you are meeting the organizations, NGOs, those who are providing the supports or services. But is there any mechanism where you can also interact with the parents or?
Absolutely. Okay. So just recently, when I had my private members bill introduced in the House, which was to make sure that all the fundings that we have from the government goes to quality care for our children. When you leave your children in a space, you want to make sure that they get the best care, they get the best training, the development is well established. So what I did was, in the morning I had a press conference, and I actually invited all the ECE workers. And in our riding we have a lot of early childhood educators who live here. We also invited families to bring their children. So I actually had a few parents showed up with their children. So we had a little play day in Queen's Park, which was fantastic. But whether it's childcare or school initiative, I would encourage the parents to get involved, because that's the only way I can I can have them in whatever issue that I work with.
So the other thing is, I will come to the other issue as well. But before going into that again, do you think that the residents of your riding, they need to understand what's going on around them? Like, say for example, what you are doing with regard to the policy making, that this
Absolutely.
policy, so
Absolutely, I think so. I think our residents who live in the riding need to be aware of what I am doing, because they are who I represent. They are who I work for. But in general, we should also be aware of what the party is doing and what the government is doing, because over the last few months, we noticed that the government has made some really significant changes that will affect our families. And we absolutely must know what those changes are. Right now we're debating Bill 47, which is the bill that the government introduced to take away a lot of rights from workers. People right now have 10 sick days, of 2 of them which are paid.
That you there was a post on about this on your Facebook,
and the 2 sick days, it means so much. This whole week I had so many different individuals reach out to me from the riding who really want to make sure that we keep that, because for some people who work a precarious job, the 10 days off is fantastic. That means that they have, and it's just 10 days out of the entire year, and 2 days out of the entire year that are paid. If we take away 2 paid sick days from people, what message are we sending them? And for some families, what for them, that means that not only are they not getting paid for that day, if they get sick, now they're having to go to the doctor, get the doctor to write a sick note, which the government implementing now. And that'll also cost money, because getting a doctor's note is also about $25, $30. You're being charged for that, and you're not getting that income that you would have for that day. If we can't give our families, our workers in this province, 2 paid sick days in the entire year, I'm not sure what kind of rights we're upholding.
Yeah. So what is your plan? How
So absolutely. So we have to know what's happening. We have to get the community involved. We have a lot of different organizations, like labor organizations, that are fighting against it. There's a group called 15 and Fairness that's fighting against it. There's also workers' action groups that are fighting against it, as well as community community centers that have individuals that work there that will be affected as well. So that they're fighting against it. But if individuals could send me emails or write to me about how they're affected, that would be fantastic. I would love to hear from people within the writing. If you're affected by any policies that the government's implementing or anything that's affecting you, write to me, because I would love to know your stories and how we can help you, and we can share that in the house as well.
That sometimes they're confused that what are the area which belongs to the federal government and what are the areas which belongs to the provincial. So what are the provincial areas which belongs to provincial government?
So that's a huge list for me to list. But what I would say is, if there is something that you're concerned about, if the public here, if people in Scarborough Southwest are struggling, whether it's health, it's education, or anything in general, you're welcome to reach out to your political representative, because we as representatives are supposed to help you, and that's our job. If it's not within our jurisdiction, we will be happy to connect you with the right member of parliament, for example. So if it's related to immigration and it's not within my jurisdiction, I will happily connect you with the federal member. But do not hesitate to reach out, because it's just a matter of us finding the right member, but that doesn't mean that you're not welcome to come to my office. You're always welcome to reach out to us.
Thank you very much. The other thing I think probably that would really benefit our viewers, that say for example, if they have certain things to share with you, or if they have any complaint to make, so do they need to write it down to you or send email, or is to visit you and just share their...
All of the above. They can do all of the above.
So it doesn't matter whether they are writing or they are just... So
we have our office is located at 3110 Kingston Road. And I'm happy to meet with the constituents. You can also reach out via email. If you Google Doly Begum, you'll find our phone number, our email address, as well as our Queen's Park location. You can reach out whichever way is convenient for you. If a phone call is good, give us a phone call and we'll get back
if
to
they
you.
want to meet you, so what is the right time to visit you at your office?
Well, if send us an email or call, and then we'll set up a time that's convenient for both of us.
So last time I remember that you told us that you will have a very specific space for the community people, so that you have the opportunity to listen to your the members, the community people, and they will have space to visit you anytime. So you are just reiterating that same thing again. And we also discussed about many other things like the affordable housing. I remember that you had a plan that NDP, I think probably that is your party position, that you will build 65,000 apartments or new homes within 10 years or 5 years. So what about that planning now?
Well, we're still going to put that out there in the house. We're going to make sure that we propose that, and all the other parts in the platform that we had. Just recently, we proposed the funding for mental health, and then we proposed the funding for healthcare. Just this week, we proposed the bill that we talked about, I believe, about seniors. So we proposed that to increase about 2,000 beds that we need, which included for long-term care, and that specifically included Scarborough, because Scarborough has a huge wait list for that. And unfortunately, being in the opposition and with the majority government, it means that the government needs to agree with us to build or to move forward with a lot of these issues. So what it means is we have to make sure we continue to push the agenda, and there's a limit to how much we can do, but it doesn't stop us from.
Thank you very much. Good to know that still you are pushing that.
Absolutely.
Priority hard.
And actually, if I may add, in terms of the listening part of it, we just had a town hall last Thursday
Yeah.
on auto insurance. So that was in Scarborough Southwest at the Warden Hilltop
Okay.
Community Center, and we had a group, a big group in the house, in the community center, telling us about how high auto insurance is affecting them.
Right.
And we had our leader Andrea Horvath there, as well as our critic for auto insurance, Guratan Singh, who came to the.
So what is the outcome of the meeting?
It was great. It was it was a listening exercise to make sure that we get to hear how people in the riding are affected, and they told us why we have to keep fighting to bring down auto insurance rates in areas like Scarborough, where it's very discriminatory. It's based on postal code, not based on how it should be.
And I remember that you were mentioning about that during your campaign as well.
Yeah.
Good that you are just carrying forward those things. I remember that we also talked about the domestic violence, because it is not only specific to this particular riding, it is across the So what is your plan, or what are you doing or planning to do with regard to the domestic violence?
Well, I think domestic violence actually intersects with a lot of other issues as well. Right. So, going back to mental health, for example, recently I visited the Domestic Violence and Abuse Center in the Scarborough Hospital. They have a really good center built within the hospital to provide support for anyone facing domestic abuse and any sort of abuse. And it, what breaks my heart is that it was a small room. They had 3 staff, and they didn't have enough room for 3 staff members, 3 nurses to work within, and the administrators to work within the hospital. They're lacking so much resources. So one thing we have to do is, we can't just talk about how the province is affected by it, but also really put some action into it, provide funding. We gotta act on those things. If we don't give the resources that they need, these people have wait lists for people facing domestic violence. No one who faces domestic violence is going to stay on a wait list. The fact that they don't have space to work is problematic. They only have 1 room in the hospital that can be secured for a woman to be in there if someone came in with a domestic violence case in the hospital. So we need to do a lot more than that. Definitely.
Yeah. We also talked about the education, about the funding of the different schools were not the equal.
Yeah.
Some schools they are getting more funds, some schools they are getting less funds. So there is a huge demand for additional funding to improve the quality of education.
Yeah.
So do you have any specific plan, or you're doing anything specific about that?
Yeah, I already started going to the schools as well. I started meeting with some of the principals. In fact, I have some coming up as well. And some schools, they have they have incredible programming for whether it's middle school, whether it's early learning, whether it's high schools. The sad part is our riding, and overall in Scarborough, we have some schools that are the ones that don't receive enough funding. We have backlogs in terms of the funding that was promised to them, or backlogs in the amount of repairs they need. I remember there's a public school in our riding in the southern area which doesn't have air conditioning. Yeah. And that was the complaint during the summertime. And now, come wintertime, they're going to be struggling with, putting up their coats and gloves in the classroom. So that's going to be a struggle. But there's a lot more to that in terms of the repair that the schools need. There's a school we have which needs a bigger gym. Right now, it was made many years ago when the capacity was less than 200, and now it's got more than 500 kids. So obviously, it's not big enough. But what the government is doing right now, they're talking about math scores. They're talking about a lot of issues without focusing on the real needs that we need immediately. So yes, I understand. You have to have all this other planning. But if we don't face the crisis that we're facing right now, if we don't deal with that, what we're doing is making our kids suffer. And making cuts in our schools, in our education, is not the right way of addressing education issues.
Definitely. Often we see that, the same experience we have, the community members, those who are sending their kids to a different schools, sometimes the quality of education they are expecting, or the service they expect to get from the school, they are not getting that. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is not getting that kind of services that they expect or the child needs, So what is the process? Where they should go? Where they should, try to pursue so that they can get the service? Do you have any idea or any suggestion for those?
Well, I would say reach out to me
Yeah.
as your provincial representative. If you're facing any struggles like that, I would love to hear the story. And these are more specific cases. So individually, I would like to know what it is and what the concerns are. And if a family wants to come and meet with me, I'd be happy to listen.
Dear viewers, the one important thing is that particularly those who resides in this riding, I mean Southwest, Scarborough Southwest, if they have any issues, as Doly Begum, our MPP says, that any issues, she is ready to, listen to you, so try to solve your problem. So if we don't raise our voice, we cannot just address the issue. I think if it is not with her, she will definitely refer that to particular agency or particular person. So that's a good thing that you are quite available for the community people.
Absolutely.
So last two things I'd like to ask you. One thing about the after election. So election is over. I know the excitement we had during your election campaign. So election is over now. You have to demonstrate certain things. Now action is required.
Absolutely.
So apart from other things, like as a resident of this riding, what you want people to, how they can help you? I mean, the election, they did their work. You see, so now you are elected. Now you are there. So you are taking care of many things. So now, after election, how they can help you to help your work.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Actually, there's lots of ways to help. You can volunteer. So volunteer with us. There is lots of events, lots of things that we do. It'll be also good for you to get a lot of experience. Another thing you could do is attend the events that we have. So we had a town hall last week.
Okay.
Make sure you attend those, so we get to meet you. We get to learn what's going on. Because if I don't get to understand, if I get to know what's going on in our community, then I can't do a good job.
Right.
So attend the events, as well as write to us. Write to us, making sure that we are aware of what's going on. And another thing you can do is, if you have if you are concerned about something, and if you want to take action, and whatever group that you're with, or if you're with the school, let's build a coalition, building forces together and work together on whatever issue it is and how we can solve that. Because I think putting our forces together makes us stronger.
Definitely, we need to raise our voice. There should be a concerted effort.
Yeah.
So you talked about that there is an opportunity for volunteers, those who are interested. Can you just tell us, our viewers, that a little bit more about that how they can, those who are interested, how they can apply for these voluntary opportunities,
well,
if how they can contribute?
Yeah, if you send me an email. If you Google me, you'll find all our information. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for Doly Begum, and you'll find our page, and send us a message there, and we'll be happy to connect with you.
And you also talked about the coalition, because coalition means there could be a number of other organizations, or they can also work together, making a coalition. You can
absolutely. I know for my private members bill, I had childcare groups from all over the province that reached out, because they were very concerned and very happy that I had proposed that bill. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to what service we're providing for our most vulnerable ones, our kids. And so I had the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare join me. I had individuals like ECE workers who joined me. I had parents who joined me. I had homeowner childcare providers. They wouldn't even be affected by this bill, but they still joined because it's a long-term goal, and in the future they would be affected by it. So all these different groups, however you may want to, feel free to come together, and then building together what we can do. It's a stronger message that we'll send to the government.
Definitely, and we can have a joint meeting. So the first step is they need to send you an email, expressing their interest. Thank you very much, Doly Begum. So the last one, I just like to finish our today's program with one of your quotes. I would request you to elaborate that quote, because I remember that last time you said that we live here, we spend our whole life in this area, still we feel that we are left out. Why did you say that? Like, what is the, can you just elaborate that one?
Well, thank you for reminding me for what I said. I think a lot of our youth here grow up feeling that feeling, you know, and it comes down to the idea of belonging. And belonging is so important for our mental health, for our physical health, for our development as individuals. Because when you feel like you don't belong in a space, nothing else matters at that moment. Especially, if you're a person of color, if you're of a different gender, or of different abilities. We have kids with special needs. Then sometimes they don't feel like they belong. Because of who they are, because of how we are, and because
even
of how
if
we
they are
look.
born and brought up here, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So sometimes some of those differences makes us feel like we don't belong in a circle. And what is so important to understand is that if we don't create those spaces, it's going to be really hard for our children to flourish, to open the doors, to kick open the doors that they need to become who they are. But it's up to us to make sure that we build those doors to those spaces. We make it available for our children. We're working on it. We live in a nice mosaic. It's not a melting pot. It's a mosaic, and we like our diversity. We like our differences, but there's a lot more we can do. It is still hard for a lot of children to get by here. The fact that we have so much child poverty in this riding is problematic. That's something that makes it feel like those kids don't belong here. And that's something we can do to make it better for them. So there's a lot of work that we need to do to make sure that we create those spaces. So thank you for that. I think it'll give me a little bit boost to continue to work hard.
Thank you very much. Since you mentioned about the diversity, I just like to ask you, check with you that whether you have any specific plan to celebrate or observe the diversity, Canadian Diversity Day, I think, which is in June 27th.
I think we will. I think we're trying to celebrate all the different occasions that we get. So not just on one day next year, but I have been very involved with the different diverse events that we have. So for example, the other day, we had Durga Puja, and then we had Eid, we had Hanukkah, like, so the different, or Rosh Hashanah, we had like all these different groups that celebrate so many different things that we have to make sure that we also accept and celebrate those. So that's another way of celebrating diversity. But I think, I'm going to go back to the idea of making sure that we create spaces for each other and listen to each other. So we don't just celebrate in one day, but it's a whole year plan.
So when you're saying that creating a space for our kids or the community, so if we try to, think about the family, even within the family, we also need to give or create space for our kids, our children, right?
Yeah, I think you said it. You said it beautifully. We have to. In a dinner table, we should have space for all of them to share their ideas.
Because why I'm raising this one, because there are a number of kids, they have shared their perspective that in the family they have a different environment. They don't get sometimes the space they need, but outside they hear something different. So there is a contrast. That's why I'm saying that if we really encourage that space thing, even at the family level, so that is definitely helping our kids to grow and become a healthy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you very much, Doly Begum. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Viewers, we were talking to Doly Begum, the MPP of Scarborough Southwest. And thank you very much for joining us. And thank you very much, Doly Begum, once again.